Stocks pop as Wall Street gets ready for Fed Chair Janet Yellen, why it could be a whirlwind of a day. In today's cover story, opportunities opening up for female athletes, including America's Little Leaguer sweetheart. Plus, you've seen the Wolf of Wall Street, now meet the real wolf. And in Traders Unplugged, an investment spin on the Ice Bucket Challenge. First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, I'm Angela Miles. It's Friday, August 22nd. In today's first look, the S&P sets a new record, and the Dow is back above 17,000. Investors charged in to buy stocks on strong economic data coming from the housing sector and from factories. The Dow climbed 60 points, the Nasdaq 6, and the S&P closed at a record 1992. Gold lost a lot of shine, falling $17, and oil edged up 57 cents. Gap topped estimates. The stock staged a slight rally after the close. GameStop also exceeded expectations. Those shares surged in the after-hours session, and Aeropostale stock fell on a poor profit forecast. Also, Home Depot has named Craig Menear as its new CEO. The current CEO, Frank Blake, will remain chairman of the board. Trader Scott Bauer, Trading Advantage, joins us on this Friday morning. Good morning to you.
Morning. How are you, Angie?
I'm doing very well. We have that Fed head weekend. What will that mean for the market?
You know, we're going to grind higher. I mean, the bottom line is the news is already out. No matter what Yellen says later today, leading off, the Jackson Hole remarks, I think the news is already out there.
Well, how long before we hit that S&P 500 2,000 mark?
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, just like Apple, it was a magnet right to 100. S&Ps are definitely a magnet to 2,000. My guess is it happens sooner rather than later, meaning probably this coming week.
Would you be a buyer Bank of America now that the settlement news is out?
I'm pretty neutral. Obviously, I wish I would have gotten in before the news came out yesterday. But this one, more often than not, you see a scenario where it's buy the rumor, sell the news. Well, with Bank of America, it was sell the rumor and then buy the news. But I will tell you, Angie, we saw great interest in Bank of America yesterday. Stock was up nicely. But the whole financial sector now is set for, being in play. That sector now is getting hot again. So I think that really fed into a lot of what we saw in Bank of America.
Thanks for helping us out.
Always a pleasure.
Time now to say good morning to my colleague, Chuck Coppola. Good morning, Chuck.
Angie, the week wraps up with another plus for the housing market. In July, houses sold at their fastest clip in almost a year. The National Association of Realtors reports existing home sales jumped 2.4%, topping economists' expectations. This week, mortgage rates ticked down to the lowest levels of the year. The 30-year fell to 4.1%, the 15-year to 3.23%.
Wall Street and Main Street are reacting to Bank of America's massive fine. The government has slapped the bank with a $16.6 billion penalty. The bank will pay the Justice Department, state, and consumers for shoddy mortgage loans that went bust in 2008, fueling the financial crisis. Bank of America has no comment on the settlement. Consumers will see some of the $7 billion in soft dollars that will help homeowners who are underwater with their mortgages. It also forces B of A to turn over dilapidated properties to nonprofits. Consumer advocates say the settlement just doesn't go far enough.
The AGs are sort of using these settlements to push public policy in a certain way because our legislation, Congress in particular, is completely broken, and the things that need to do to remedy the problems that were created by Bank of America are simply not being done by our public policymakers.
The Wall Street Journal says the Justice Department is now set to turn its attention to banks that sold mortgage-backed securities during the crisis, including Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo.
The nation's big banks are boosting salaries to attract top grads and lure them away from tech sector jobs. Bank of America and Goldman Sachs both plan to increase salaries by 20%. Salary hikes are also expected at JP Morgan and Citigroup. That's according to Bloomberg News. Junior bankers can now reel in up to $140,000 per year with bonuses.
The rumor mill is in full tilt on a possible plan for eBay to spin off PayPal. Tech news website The Information reports recruits for the CEO position at PayPal are being told eBay is considering spinning off the payments business as soon as next year. Activist investor Carl Icahn started campaigning earlier this year for eBay to spin off PayPal, but eBay's CEO dissed the idea. Investors raced to buy on that report. eBay shares rallied 4% on Thursday.
In today's cover story, this summer has been historic for girls and women in sport, and it's not over yet. 2 weeks ago, Becky Hammon became an NBA assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, 13-year-old Monet Davis of Philadelphia has become the first girl to pitch a shutout in the Little League World Series. They're opening eyes and maybe a few doors. A 13-year-old Little League sensation is on the cover of Sports Illustrated on the power of her 70-mile-an-hour fastball. Monet Davis, first girl to pitch a shutout in the Little League World Series.
If I do stay into baseball, hopefully I can pitch.
17 girls have played in the Little League World Series. At 5'4" and 105 pounds, Davis isn't bigger than the other kids, but she can throw in the upper 60s for 6 innings. And in the same summer, Becky Hammon became an NBA assistant coach with San Antonio. Some see this moment as an opportunity.
We are finally, again, at the national level, starting to take women's sports and women's achievements as athletes, not as pinup girls, but as athletes seriously.
It's already become an opportunity on a different level. eBay lists more than 70 items, mostly baseballs, autographed by the 13-year-old, but not being sold by her or her family. Some are going for $100, $127. What do you think about that?
Well, that's individuals exploiting her. I don't think you'll ever be able to stop that.
But most of the attention is about inclusion. Pioneering tennis star Billie Jean King tweeted, "See what happens when you let everyone play."
This feels like, for people who follow these types of things, just an additional step forward, and not as much of a massive step forward as maybe the media wants to portray it.
Sports marketer Stephanie Francis cautions not to put too much on the shoulders of a 13-year-old, even one as poised as Davis.
These guys should be interviewed more because it's not just about me.
As talented as she is at baseball, Davis has dreams of playing basketball at the University of Connecticut and afterward, the WNBA.
Dollar General is feeling the sting of rejection. Family Dollar is rejecting Dollar General's bid of $8.9 billion. Family Dollar is viewed as a major takeover target as a struggling business closes stores and cuts prices. Last month, Family Dollar agreed to an $8.5 billion deal with Dollar Tree.
Angie, that deal is still a go. The CEO of Dollar Tree says his company is committed to buying Family Dollar. He also says Dollar Tree sales improved more than expected, despite a profit decline as margins slipped. Dollar Tree stock closed down 1.3% yesterday at $54.28. Slump at Sears Holdings is not over yet. The retail chain had a wider loss than Wall Street anticipated. Revenue declined 9.7%. Stores are in the midst of a transformation. Sears shares dipped more than 7% and closed at $33.38.
Ford is warning dealers to put the brakes on selling and test driving of some brand new models. The car company says there are potential problems with the assembly of ball bearings in the steering gear. It's happening in C-Max and Focus models. Ford says less than 50 of those cars have been sold.
More Americans are hitting the road for Labor Day weekend. 34.7 million Americans, in fact, are getting out of town for the holiday. That's according to AAA. 86% of those taking off for the weekend are choosing to drive to their destination. That's as airfare prices rise.
Airfare prices and hotel prices for the summer were up year over year, and I think that did affect where travelers decided to take their vacations. The majority of travelers told us that they didn't end up going where they really wanted to this summer, and that was primarily due to cost.
The silver lining for drivers is that gas prices are flat from last year and currently still falling. The average cost of a gallon of unleaded is $3.43. That's down 4 cents from last week.
Hot meals will be rolled out on short flights at United. The airline is attempting to attract business travelers by upgrading its first-class food options. Starting in February, snacks will be replaced with full hot meals on flights of at least 800 miles. Until now, meals were only served on flights of 900 miles or longer. American Airlines will eliminate hot meals on most flights less than 1,000 miles starting September 1st.
With the annual late August slowdown hitting the IPO market, the calendar is empty for next week. But investors have one name to look forward to: Shake Shack. The restaurant chain, which started out of a hot dog kiosk in New York, is expected to file this year. It follows casual dining chain IPOs that have been hot with investors. They include El Pollo Loco, Zoe's Kitchen, and Papa Murphy's.
And this is a good one to report home at last.
Today is a miraculous day. I'm thrilled to be alive, to be well, and to be reunited with my family.
Both of the American doctors who became infected with Ebola in West Africa last month have been released from the hospital. Dr. Kent Brantley was working in Liberia when he caught the virus. After coming to the U.S., doctors Brantley and Nancy Wrightbull were treated with an experimental drug from privately held company MAP Biopharmaceutical. Shares of Tecmira Pharmaceuticals rose 3.5% yesterday. This week, Bloomberg News reported Tecmira's experimental drug for an Ebola-like virus succeeded in a study. On to the earnings calendar for today. It's Foot Locker and Ann Taylor. Still to come, it's a Traders Unplugged Friday. Find out which companies the guys say to invest in now to make your money grow. Plus, a trader who's running for cover in Amazon and in Facebook. Plus, if you like Wolf of Wall Street, the man behind that true story will be right here after the break. Wall Street criminal to Hollywood star. Jordan Belfort, author, motivational speaker, and the real-life Wolf of Wall Street joins us this morning. Good morning to you.
How you doing there?
How do people react to you now? You were once big time on Wall Street, and of course, some of that came with ripping people off. So what's a reaction?
I mean, I've been speaking around the world for a bunch of years now. So I think, most people who come to see me already know the story. They've either seen the movie or read one of my books. So, they're really to find out really, in a sense, what really happened that wasn't in the books, in the movie, and what's real and what's not. They also want to know the sort of how I was able to come back from the disaster. Because when, many people, when they take that hit and they take a fall in life, it's usually a knockout punch.
How were you able to make a big comeback?
Well, I think it starts with, number one, accepting the mistakes that you made and learning from them, is versus dwelling in them. That's number one. And then it's really, having a vision for your future. For me, it started understanding where I wanted to go, and then there were certain core strategies that I used that are part of a system that I teach people, and one of them is basically the influence and persuasion, the ability to market, and understanding how to grow a business. But again, it starts with having this vision for your future and really having a very clear outcome in mind before you get started.
One thing I've noticed in this industry, you can persuade people to good or you can persuade them to bad. So how do you keep on the right track? What would be an idea or tip that you could give us right now?
When I train salesmen, I use a very powerful system I created called the straight line. And at the heart of it, what it does, it essentially lines up all the elements of influence in a certain way. And it's very easy to learn and extremely powerful. Now, the core part of it has to do with ethics and integrity is you never want to be using this to sell someone something they don't need that won't benefit them. So the idea is to not take that first step over the line and to understand that success and ethics are not mutually exclusive. You can have both. You can become wildly successful, not sacrifice your ethics, and that's how I live my life today. I'm doing really well again, and more successful than ever because this time the success is real.
How well are you doing? What's your net worth?
I'm able to, live a good life and pay back all this money from, probably will be a 2-year-long U.S. tour. So, I'm very fortunate. And, and again, I think that, for me, making money was always very easy. I don't think getting rich is difficult. There are certain things you need to know. Certainly, influence and persuasion is one. There are skills of business, certain ways in terms of how to fail elegantly, meaning as an entrepreneur, you got to learn how to be wrong in business. And also, what do you do when your business is right? How do you add a zero onto your income? How do you leverage, take a small business and turn it into a big business? How do you market your products, both offline and online? So what I teach people really is essentially the business skills and the mindset of success. And, it's from a guy who's been to the top, to the bottom, and then back up to where I am again today. So I think the system's pretty powerful.
Jordan Belfort, thank you.
My pleasure.
Coming up, the popular tech stocks one trader thinks are too pricey. And in Traders Unplugged, how that Ice Bucket Challenge is giving the guys investment ideas. That's after the break. hit the deck of CME Group for Traders Unplugged. Joining us now, Alan Nuckman and James O'Malley. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Round number one, gone bananas. Is a tax inversion plan by Chiquita a sign of irrational exuberance in the stock market?
I think so. We're talking about bananas here. We're not talking about a tech company that makes anything. It's simply bananas, supply and demand. And I think it's a reflection of people expecting too much out of corporations and corporations trying too hard to perform.
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, we saw just how much the market beat down Walgreens when they announced that they weren't going to do an inversion. I think this is probably the right play for Chiquita. They are a very big company. Bananas is one of the most concentrated markets in the entire world. Even if people do decide to boycott them for changing their mailing address to avoid paying U.S. taxes, it doesn't really matter because there's nowhere else to get bananas.
It's nature's perfect food, but the whole idea of inversion, the corporate tax rate is listed at 35%, but nobody pays that. The rate for corporations, the S&P 500 corporations, is 15%. So you have to dial down. It's got a big headline number, but nobody pays that.
Round number two, growing pains. Which of America's fastest growing companies is a good investment? Both AT&T and Starbucks happen to be on that list.
Right, so I actually like Starbucks better than the rest there. I think Starbucks has a lot of upside here. They haven't quite gotten as stretched as some of the other tech names on that list, so I think this is a good play. With markets nearing new all-time highs once again here, everyone's going to be looking for value, and I think that piling into tech names that have a much higher valuation that looks a little more stretched might be a little too risky here for me.
Starbucks could easily go to 90. We would trade between 70 and 80. A breakout above 80 sends it to 90. But the concern is, do they end up like Staples, where they grow too fast and have too many stores? That's not going to happen.
Round number three, the popular Ice Bucket Challenge is a reminder of the research work pharmaceutical companies do to get drugs onto the market. So what's your best pharma find?
Wow, it's a really tough sector because it's come a long, long way. Your risk reward is very skewed right now. IBB is the iShares that tracks the biotechnology fund. It's gone from 275 down to 210, back up to 265. So that target's a 25% move, but it's very, very hard to play things after they've had this extended move.
Right, absolutely. Just like Alan said, this thing has been bouncing around like a yo-yo here and has the potential of wiping out my account. However, as an options trader, I'm able to look at strategies using the options market that set up very well risk versus reward setups that are very well defined. That's not going to blow up my account in an adverse move against me. I think it's really the only way for a smart investor to play biotech.
Well, here's your bonus round question for this week. True or false? The NFL is asking potential Super Bowl halftime performers to pay to play.
True.
It is true, and they're going to take a percentage of their touring profits. So I don't know what the math is on that, but that's very interesting.
Bad trade.
It is true, according to the Wall Street Journal. Can you correctly guess how many viewers watch the Super Bowl?
65 million?
300 million.
Well, according to the report, it's 100 million. Thank you for being on the show. First Business continues right after this. A couple of tech stocks are starting to look toppy in the eyes of trader Tim Bigham of Trading Block. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Angie.
Amazon and Facebook have both had amazing runs during the past couple of weeks. Let's start with Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazon, had been up 9 days in a row. Went back to actually the IPO days, going back to 1997. Only 3 instances in that time frame, over 4,200 trading days, where Amazon had been up 10 days in a row. So getting a little cautious on Amazon, to say the least, given the rally off the lows from 2 weeks ago.
Would you be a buyer of put options on Amazon and on Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook, same kind of idea there. I actually looked at what's called implied volatility. Fancy way of saying the price of the options. It's in the lowest 3% it's been at in the past year. So normally that's kind of a cautionary tone for the stock going forward as well from a contrarian viewpoint. So a lot of these stocks, and let's not forget the S&Ps were at 1,900 only a couple weeks ago, pushing towards 2,000. So the veracity of this rally may have gotten ahead of itself, in my opinion.
Or in other words, the run is overdone in your view.
Absolutely. I think, wait for a little weakness to add to positions. If long, maybe even trim out of some up here. Take what Miss Yellen is giving you and be happy.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Always great to talk to you, Tim. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you, Angie.
And with that, it's closing time for us today. Join us Monday for stocks that you might want to consider shorting. Find out the short list on our next show. From all of us at First Business, have a fabulous Friday.